The stars over Earth burned white and furious that night, their light cutting through the dark as thousands of alien warships surrounded the planet. From orbit, they looked like a ring of knives, sleek and cold, each one larger than a city. The Galactic Council's fleet had arrived, carrying the judgment of 1,000 worlds. Their commanders expected surrender. Instead, they found silence. No signals, no pleas. Just the blue and green world below, turning slowly, quiet and still as if waiting. In the command deck of the alien flagship, the High Marshal of the Council leaned forward. "Why are their defense grids inactive?" he hissed. His voice carried through the translator as a sharp metallic rasp. "They know we are here. They must." The alien officer shifted uneasily. Their sensors showed strange patterns on the planet's surface. Energy readings that flickered like heartbeats, faint but deliberate. One of the younger analysts trembled. "Sir, it's not defense systems, it's power lines, cities," the marshal glared. "Explain." "Every city on the planet," the analyst said, his hands shaking, "is drawing power at once. It's coordinated." Then, before the fleet could react, the clouds above Earth began to glow. The auroras flared bright and violent, stretching across the poles and bleeding into the sky like veins of light. One by one, satellites blinked awake, relics from the old world linked together in an ancient network. The alien scanners lit up with interference. On Earth, human eyes watched from command bunkers buried deep beneath continents. Generals and scientists stood before holographic maps. The plan had taken decades, built from scraps of old systems and human stubbornness. "Signals locked," said Admiral Reyes, his voice calm. "Phase 1. GhostNet." The words echoed through a dozen underground command centers. The moment he spoke, every alien ship in orbit found its targeting systems jammed. Artificial signals reflected false readings, multiplying ghost images of Earth until there appeared to be hundreds of planets spinning before them. The alien fleet opened fire in panic and the void erupted in blinding light. Their beams struck illusions. Their torpedoes hit nothing but plasma shadows. The fleet's formation broke apart in confusion, as the humans' ancient satellites, once used for communication and weather, tracking now bent their signals into a web of deception. "Impossible," the High Marshal whispered. "They're centuries behind us." But the truth was worse than he feared. Humanity had learned to fight without matching strength for strength. They had learned patience, deception, and how to weaponize desperation. From the Earth's surface, electromagnetic pulses fired upward in synchronized bursts. The fleet's long-range sensors flickered out, the stars vanishing behind static. The Marshal's ship shuddered as its guidance systems faltered. "Pull back," he roared. But before his command could reach the fleet, the voice of a human broke through their comms. Calm, controlled, a woman's voice. "This is Earth Command," she said. "The Council came to judge us. We came prepared to answer." Her voice carried no anger, only certainty. It was the kind of tone that made entire fleets hesitate. Then, as suddenly as it began, the attack stopped. The ghost planets vanished. The static cleared. Earth floated once again in silence. The Marshal waited for retaliation, for missiles, for fleets to rise from the surface. None came, only the message followed. "Stand down, Council fleet. Your inquiry is scheduled in session. Bring your ambassadors, not your guns." That night, for the first time in galactic history, the most feared armada in the universe obeyed a single planet's order. The Council demanded a formal hearing. Humanity accepted. The trial would take place in the galactic chamber under the eyes of every species in the galaxy. Weeks later, the enormous crystalline halls of the chamber glowed with cold light. Thousands of alien delegates filled the tiers, each one representing a different world. Their bodies shimmered on scales, fur, metal, and plasma. At the center stood the accused Earth. Ambassador Laura Hale walked alone to the platform. She was small, unarmored, her pale gray uniform plain against the grandeur around her. No guards, no translators, just her voice and her mind. The Speaker of the Council, a being made of shifting vapor within a shell of glass, addressed her. "Humanity of the Deathworld," he said, his tone dripping with disdain. "You stand accused of defiance, of developing hidden weapons, of deceiving this council. You destabilized our fleets and violated universal peace. Do you deny it?" Laura's expression did not change. "We defended our world," she said. The speaker's glass cracked faintly with irritation. "Defended? You jammed interstellar fleets with primitive machines. You could have caused collapse across trade networks. You showed no restraint. She met his gaze without fear. Restraint, she repeated softly. If we hadn't restrained ourselves, there wouldn't be a fleet left to accuse us. A stunned silence fell. Across the chamber, whispers spread like a storm. The council's elite stared at her in disbelief. The speaker leaned closer. Your planet's nature is violent. You evolved where others would perish. Perhaps that is why you are dangerous. Laura tilted her head. We evolved to survive, she said. That doesn't make us dangerous. It makes us adaptable, the delegates murmured again. The council was not used to being challenged by a species that still relied on combustion engines and muscle-driven ships. Yet here she stood, unshaken, her world untouched despite their fleets. One of the crystalline delegates, its voice echoing like bells, leaned forward. And what of your representative to the Academy? The one chosen for the rehabilitation exchange? Will she also speak as boldly as you? Laura turned her head slowly. Lena Ward, she said. 17 years old. She will attend your academy as part of our agreement. Learn your ways. Understand your systems. The speaker smiled coldly. A single girl from a death world among the galaxy's brightest. How long do you think she'll last? Laura's eyes narrowed. Long enough to teach them something they've forgotten. The council chamber fell silent again. Cameras captured her expression. The quiet certainty of a species that had endured every kind of extinction. When the session ended, alien networks across the galaxy replayed the moment endlessly. Commentators mocked her defiance, calling humanity arrogant and short-lived. They said their fragile bodies would never withstand the conditions of the Council Academy. They said humans were frail. But far away in a launch bay beneath the pale skies of Earth, Lena Ward stood beside a battered shuttle that bore the marks of fire and dust. Her eyes were bright, her posture calm. She had grown under red storms, breathed dust that could cut lungs, and learned to run on broken ground. The Academy's sterile air would be nothing to her. The shuttle lifted from the Earth's surface, cutting through the cloud layers into the stars. Around her, alien ships watched, scanning, measuring, waiting for a sign of weakness. Inside, Lena adjusted her seat and looked through the viewport as Earth faded into a blue glow. She whispered softly to herself, Frail, huh? Let's see. Far above, the Council fleets lingered in orbit, still shaken by the planet that had refused to kneel. No one yet understood that the most dangerous thing about humanity wasn't their weapons, or their strategies, or their defiance. It was their ability to look at impossible odds, smile, and keep walking forward. The Galactic Council thought they had contained the Deathworld species. They thought a single student among their own would be harmless. They were wrong. Because somewhere in the quiet hum of the shuttle, Lena Ward closed her eyes and dreamed not of survival, but of challenge. She was heading straight into the heart of the galaxy, where no human had ever walked freely before, a place where every being would see her as weak, slow, or insignificant. And she couldn't wait to prove them all wrong. The Council fleets drifted in silence behind her, the Earth spinning below, a jewel of defiance among the stars. The trial was over, but the story had only begun. The girl from the Deathworld was coming, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The alien fleet appeared above Jupiter without warning. 20 massive ships, each the size of continents, drifted out of the void, their hulls glowing with violet energy. The fleet belonged to the Crix Dominion, a warrior species known across the galaxy for conquering systems without mercy. They had come to test Earth's defenses after the Council's recent humiliation. In their minds, humanity was a fragile upstart that needed to be reminded of its place. The Dominion Admiral, a towering figure covered in metallic scales, studied the blue planet on his screen. Primitive world, he muttered. Their weapons can't reach this far. Begin the bombardment demonstration. Let the Council see what happens when a Deathworld forgets who rules the stars. But before his fleet could fire, their scanners went dark. Every ship flickered as their systems failed one by one. Artificial intelligence units began shutting down. Energy cores started redirecting power without command. The crew panicked as their controls froze. On the main screen, a message appeared, simple and human. Interference detected. Stand by for data correction. Earth Defense Net, the Admiral roared. Trace the source. They tried, but there was nothing to find. The interference didn't come from any satellite or defense weapon. It came from the planet itself. Every electronic pulse, every frequency, every code was being mirrored and rewritten by Earth's own atmosphere. The humans had turned the planet into a digital trap, bending electromagnetic fields in real time. Then, as quickly as the interference had begun, it stopped. All systems returned to normal. Power stable, one of the officers said shakily. The Admiral laughed coldly. So they play tricks. Fine. Let's end this. He ordered the fleet to fire a single plasma lance toward Earth's upper orbit. The beam never hit. Instead, it shattered into fragments halfway through the atmosphere, dispersing like rain. The energy had been diffused, redirected through a barrier invisible to alien eyes. A human voice broke through their comms again, calm and faintly amused. "This is Earth Command. You're trespassing. If you proceed, we'll assume hostile intent," the Dominion Admiral snarled. "You can't stop us with static and wind." "True," the voice replied. "But you've already stopped yourselves." Then the fleet's navigation data started rewriting itself. Their star maps flipped. The Crick ships found their coordinates scrambled beyond recognition. They weren't in orbit over Jupiter anymore. They were hundreds of thousands of kilometers away, thrown off by Earth's electromagnetic mirage. The Admiral stared in disbelief. They tricked the stars. The fleet turned and fled into deep space. No one ever saw them again. Far below, in a hidden bunker beneath Earth's crust, Admiral Reyes smiled faintly. "They'll keep calling us primitive," he said, "right up until they realize what that word really means to us." But above all the war rooms and satellites, the real story wasn't the fleets or the admirals. It was a single shuttle cutting through the quiet of space, carrying one girl to the Galactic Academy. Lena Ward had left Earth behind, but she carried its silence with her. The stars outside her window gleamed cold and distant as her shuttle entered the Academy's orbit around Tau Kigni. The massive ring-shaped station spun slowly, surrounded by hundreds of smaller ships from every known world. It glittered like a crown above the gas giant below. When Lena's shuttle docked, a dozen alien cadets watched from the glass observation bridge. They were tall, elegant, their skin shining with metallic hues. They whispered as she stepped out, small, thin, and human. "She's from the Deathworld," one hissed. "She looks weak," another murmured. "I heard her kind destroy themselves just to win fights." Lena didn't respond. Her steps were steady, her face calm. She moved like someone used to heavier gravity and harsher air. Every breath here felt too light, too easy. At registration, the Academy's overseer scanned her file and frowned. "Lena Ward, Earth origin. Deathworld classification confirmed. You'll attend basic adaptation first. Try not to injure anyone. Your body structure isn't built for this environment." She nodded. "Understood." But as she walked through the halls, she noticed the way the aliens moved, and graceful but fragile. Their steps were light, their bodies unscarred by real pressure. The Academy corridors were spotless, the air temperature always perfect. It reminded her of a greenhouse, beautiful but controlled. Her first day of training came fast. Physical evaluation took place in a vast dome under simulated gravity. The alien students laughed when they saw her uniform, too big at the shoulders and creased from storage. The instructor, a towering reptilian officer named General Volrax, stood in front of them. "You are here to represent the best of your worlds. Let us see what the Deathworld's child can do." Lena stood in line as they ran the first test, endurance under weight. The gravity field increased gradually, pressing down on every student. Most of the aliens dropped out at 3 times standard gravity. By 4, half the class lay gasping on the floor. Lena stayed standing. At 6, her legs shook. Sweat ran down her back, but she held her ground. At 7, she stumbled, dropped to one knee, and then pushed herself upright again. The instructor barked, "Enough!" When the gravity field deactivated, she stayed standing while the others collapsed. Volrax glared at her. "Impressive. But stubbornness is not strength. Remember that." Lena only nodded again. "On Earth, it's both." The aliens stared. None of them spoke. For the first time, they saw that the so-called frail girl from the Deathworld had lasted longer than any of them. That evening, in the dorms, whispers followed her. Some mocked, others avoided her. One alien cadet approached her with curiosity. His name was Ril, a quiet student from a water world. "Why do you push so hard?" he asked. "You could have stopped and still passed." Lena looked out the window at the distant stars. Because where I'm from, if you stop, you die. I guess I never unlearned that. Rill didn't understand. But he saw something in her eyes that made him step back. Not arrogance, but something harder, older. The next day, the instructor changed tactics. He assigned group training and survival simulation. A holographic landscape of storms and predators designed to test teamwork. Lena was paired with aliens who clearly didn't want her there. The simulation began with an ambush. When the first creature lunged from the mist, the others froze. Lena moved. She grabbed a fallen branch, jammed it into the creature's mouth, and used its weight to pull herself up a ledge. The alien stared. Her motions were fast and instinctive, built on reaction and desperation. "You use no weapons?" one of them said afterward, amazed. Lena shrugged. "Didn't need any." General Volrax watched from above, his expression unreadable. He'd expected her to fail, to prove humanity's weakness. Instead, she adapted faster than anyone. He told himself it was luck. But deep down, he wondered what kind of place could create someone like that. By the end of the week, the whispers in the academy halls had changed. The laughter had stopped. Some still mocked her quietly, but others watched her differently now. Cautious, curious, maybe even afraid. Late one night, Lena returned to her dorm after another simulation. The lights flickered as she entered. A group of upper cadets waited inside, their eyes cold. "Deathworlder," one said. "You think you're better than us? You're just an animal that got lucky." Lena didn't flinch. "Maybe," she said softly. "But animals survive." When they lunged, the lights went out completely. Moments later, the alarms blared. The cadets stumbled into the corridor, dazed and bruised. No one could explain what had happened in the dark. In the control room, the engineers checked the system logs. The power failure had originated from the environmental grid, triggered by a single biometric signature. Hers. When General Volrax reviewed the report, he frowned. "Frail," he muttered. "Doesn't make the lights go out." He didn't know yet that the Deathworld girl had just begun to show them what humans could do when cornered. And somewhere beyond the academy, the stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. The alien fleet appeared in Earth's orbit again, but this time it wasn't the Krix Dominion or the Council. It was something far worse. The Varn Collective, machines older than recorded history, had awakened from the dark between galaxies. They did not speak, negotiate, or warn. They simply consumed. Their ships were black and alive, pulsing like veins through the void, feeding on the energy of stars. The first wave drifted near Mars, and within hours the red planet went silent. On Earth, panic spread across every continent. Governments sent desperate calls to the Galactic Council for help, but the Council hesitated. The Varn were not enemies anyone wanted to face. They destroyed empires, erased fleets, and left nothing behind. No one ever defeated them. The Council chose to observe instead of intervene. Humanity was on its own. Inside Earth's command bunker, buried deep beneath the Atlantic, Admiral Reyes and his team studied the data feeds. The holographic map showed a slow-moving swarm approaching from Mars' orbit. "They're stripping the debris field," Reyes said quietly. "Every metal particle, every fragment. They're feeding." Dr. Morgan, the chief engineer, turned from her console. "We can't fight them head-on. Their armor absorbs energy. Missiles won't matter. They'll just turn it into power." Reyes nodded slowly. "Then we don't feed them. We starve them." He looked around the room, his eyes calm even as the world above trembled. "Bring the satellites online. GhostNet protocol, full range. Begin blackout." Within minutes, Earth went dark. Every city, every satellite, every beacon powered down. The planet fell into total silence. The Varn swarm approached cautiously, scanning for signals, for movement, for warmth. They found none. To them, it was as if the planet had died. But deep under the oceans, hidden within old trenches, the real power flickered to life. A network of ancient fusion cores linked together through submarine cables that had existed for centuries. Humanity had hidden its defenses where no alien could see, under the sea, buried in silence. The first signal pulsed from the trenches, faint and irregular, like the heartbeat of a dying world. The Varn focused their sensors on it. That was their mistake. The signal was a decoy, designed to lure them closer. When the swarm descended toward the ocean, the water exploded upward. Hundreds of electromagnetic torpedoes burst from the depths, releasing a pulse so intense it scrambled the Varn's biomechanical systems. Half their ships froze mid-air, drifting like corpses. The others backed away, their formations breaking apart. Reyes watched the readings. They adapt fast, he said. Send the second pulse now. Dr. Morgan hesitated. It could knock our own systems offline. Do it anyway. The second pulse hit. The ocean boiled from the energy release. The Varn swarm screamed through static as their connections severed. Then, as suddenly as they had come, the remaining ships turned and fled into deep space. Earth had survived again, not through strength, but through misdirection and sacrifice. Status? Reyes asked. Morgan exhaled. We fried half our grid, but we're alive. Reyes gave a faint smile. Alive is enough. The Council would later call it luck. But across the galaxy, the footage of Earth's blackout spread. The species that had once been called primitive had defeated the most feared machines in existence, without firing a single beam weapon. While the Council debated, life continued far away on the Galactic Academy. Lena Ward's days had grown longer and harder. She was no longer treated as a joke. Now she was treated as a challenge. Her instructors increased her workloads, changed her assignments, and monitored every move she made. The Academy's halls were colder now. Whispers followed her, not mocking but wary. Even General Volrax had stopped smirking during training sessions. One morning, a message came through the Academy network. It wasn't from Earth Command, it was from the Council itself. The message stated that a new practical examination would test the cadets' crisis-solving skills. The simulation would replicate a real emergency, a power reactor meltdown in one of the Council colonies. The task was simple: prevent disaster using teamwork and logic. Lena was assigned to the engineering group under General Volrax's supervision. Most of the cadets groaned when they saw her name on the roster. We're doomed, one muttered. The Deathworld girl will melt before the reactor does, Volrax smirked. Let's see if your species can think under pressure, human. The simulation began. Inside the virtual chamber, a holographic reactor core pulsed with unstable energy. The alarms blared as radiation levels rose. Every student ran to their stations, calling out commands in panic. The readings made no sense. The temperature climbed too fast. Volrax barked orders. Stabilize the coolant flow. The cadets scrambled, but the systems didn't respond. The pressure inside the reactor climbed beyond safety limits. One wrong move would trigger a catastrophic explosion. Lena stood apart, studying the readings. Something wasn't right. She noticed the numbers didn't match the flow patterns. The simulation wasn't a test of physics, it was a test of perception. She turned to Volrax. It's not real, she said. You're feeding false data into the core. The numbers loop every 7 seconds. Volrax's eyes narrowed. Prove it. She typed a command reconfiguring the reactor's input feed. The pattern repeated exactly. It was a design trap, meant to overload whoever tried to fix it. Lena didn't use the control console. Instead, she rerouted the circuit manually through the backup conduit, bypassing the main system entirely. Her hands moved fast, her calculations instinctive. When she hit the final switch, the alarm stopped. The holographic reactor cooled, the energy field stabilizing. The simulation ended. The cadets stared at her. Even Volrax's voice faltered. How did you see it? Lena looked up at him, her expression calm. Because where I come from, systems fail every day. You stop trusting what screens tell you. You listen to the machine instead. He said nothing. Later that evening, as she walked through the academy corridors, she overheard her name again, but this time it wasn't laughter. It was respect. Fear, even. One of the instructors spoke quietly to another. She bypassed the council simulation. No one's ever done that. Not even top-ranking officers. She's dangerous, the other replied. Too dangerous for her age. In her dorm, Lena sat by the window, watching the stars. Her hands were still trembling slightly from the effort. She didn't feel proud, only tired. She knew Volrax wouldn't let this go. She had embarrassed him in front of the council observers. The next day, she was summoned to a private briefing room. Volrax waited for her, his metallic skin glinting in the light. You think your little trick proves something? He said. You humans believe pain is strength, that chaos is control. But here we rely on precision, not instinct. Lena met his gaze. Instinct is what saves you when precision fails. His eyes darkened. We'll see how long that keeps you alive. He dismissed her, but his words echoed in her mind long after she left. That night, as the academy slept, Volrax stood before the council communication relay. The Deathworld girl is becoming a problem, he reported. If she keeps this up, others will start questioning our control. I recommend containment. The council's reply was simple. Observe her. If she becomes a threat, remove her quietly. The next day, a new announcement spread through the academy. A special event was scheduled, a live demonstration in the training arena. Volrax himself would oversee it. Lena read the notice on her datapad. Her pulse quickened. She could sense something wrong. This wasn't a lesson. It was a setup. As she walked toward the arena, the corridor seemed colder than before. The alien cadets avoided her gaze. Outside, beyond the transparent dome of the academy, stars glimmered in silent witness. Somewhere far away, Earth turned beneath its clouds, unaware that its chosen representative stood on the edge of something dangerous. Lena stepped into the arena as the lights dimmed, and the metallic floor hummed under her boots. The Deathworld girl was about to face a test that no human had ever survived. The sky above Earth burned silver as the alien fleet descended through the clouds. From orbit, the ships looked like vast shards of ice cutting through the atmosphere, trailing storms in their wake. Every defense satellite in orbit locked its targeting arrays on them, and for a heartbeat, humanity stood one command away from total war. The Galactic Council had forbidden Earth from deploying weapons beyond its orbit, but Earth had never been known for obedience when cornered. In the silence of Earth's command nexus, Admiral Leon stood at the viewing screen, her hand hovering over the override switch that could launch 300 orbital cannons in unison. But she waited. She waited because Earth didn't fight with brute strength anymore. They fought with patience. They fought with intelligence. Fleet formation complete, said Commander Hale. Unknown energy signatures are spiking across the alien formation. They're preparing for surface deployment. Leon's eyes flicked to the holographic map. Let them come, she said quietly. They're not ready for our soil. Far above the planet, the alien ships broke formation, deploying sleek landing craft that glowed like meteors as they entered the atmosphere. Their orders were simple. Retrieve the Deathworld girl and crush any human resistance. To them, it was a small operation. To Earth, it was a declaration. As the first ship landed in the wastelands of Central Asia, the ground itself trembled. Within moments, seismic alarms triggered across multiple continents. Leanne watched as a red pulse moved through the holographic map. Something deep beneath Earth's crust had awakened. In the deserts below, an alien commander named Vareth stepped out of his ship, armored in luminous silver. He scoffed at the barren horizon. So this is humanity's fortress world, he said. They call it a death world, but I see only dust and weakness. A voice crackled over his comms. Remember your objective. Capture the girl alive. The council demands her return. Vareth smirked. A child of this primitive planet? I will drag her by her hair if I must. Then the sand split open beneath him. The ground moved, not with tremors but purpose. A low hum began to rise through the rock and the temperature dropped sharply. As Vareth raised his rifle, glowing veins of blue light burst from the ground, spiraling outward in fractal patterns. His troops stumbled back, shouting in panic. From the depths, something vast shifted. Within the command center, Leon saw it all on her screen. It's starting, she whispered. She's waking it. The Deathworld girl, Alira, was no longer in the alien academy. After her public humiliation, after being called frail and weak before the entire Galactic Assembly, she had returned home. But Earth was not the same as when she left. Its core technology was alive, built from bioreactive alloys and semi-conscious systems buried during the silent centuries. And Alira had bonded with it. In the desert, the ground cracked open and a massive metallic tendril rose like the spine of a mechanical beast. The alien soldiers fired upon it, but the bullets evaporated mid-air, dissolving into harmless particles. The sand swirled around Alira as she stepped out from the storm, her small figure framed by lightning that seemed to answer her thoughts. Vareth froze when he saw her. She was no older than 16, dressed in a simple human exosuit, her hair tangled by wind and dust. But her eyes glowed faintly blue, the same hue as the awakening earth beneath her feet. You shouldn't have come here, she said softly. Vareth laughed. You think you can threaten me, little one? Alira didn't answer. She raised her hand slightly. The sand behind her rose like a living wave. Fire, Vareth ordered. Plasma rounds streaked through the air, but before they struck, the ground shifted again, tilting like a wave at sea. Every alien soldier stumbled. Ferrith turned his head too late to see the earth itself split apart, a chasm opening beneath his feet. The floor literally tore itself in two. The entire platoon fell screaming into the darkness. Only Verith remained clinging to the edge as molten light erupted from below. He looked up and saw Alira standing calmly over him. "Earth doesn't forgive trespassers," she said. Then she released her hold on the ground, and he vanished into the abyss. Back in orbit, the alien fleet detected massive gravitational anomalies on the planet's surface. "Command, we're reading tectonic fluctuations across multiple sectors," one shouted. "It's like the planet's alive." And in a way it was. Leon watched as the signals spread, mountains pulsing with energy, oceans glowing faintly with patterns only visible from orbit. Earth had always been called a death world by the Galactic Council because of its harsh ecosystems and violent storms. But the truth was much deeper. The planet itself was part of humanity's defense, a self-aware system built after centuries of isolation. Now it was waking. Hale turned to her. "Should we intervene?" Leon shook her head. "No, the Council sent their soldiers to take her. Let them see what they've provoked." On the desert surface, Alira stood alone amid the dust. The alien landing craft burned where they had fallen, twisted by seismic energy. She looked at the horizon where the second wave of ships was approaching. 50, maybe more. For the first time, she felt the faint pull of fear. The energy inside her whispered that the planet would protect her, but the cost would be high. If she let it continue, millions could die. She touched her wristband and opened a channel. "Command Nexus, this is Alira. I need containment zones active. Do not engage the fleet yet." Leon's voice came through the static. "They're coming for you. We can deploy the orbital cannons." "No," Alira said firmly. "Let them see Earth. Let them understand what they're dealing with." Moments later, the sky split again. Alien ships descended like a swarm of silver locusts. Alira closed her eyes. The ground beneath her feet pulsed once, twice. Then the desert floor split apart again, revealing ancient machinery buried since before recorded time. Huge metal pillars rose, inscribed with symbols older than the Council itself. The ships opened fire. Beams of plasma tore across the horizon, igniting the air. But as the light cleared, Alira stood unharmed, shielded by a shimmering barrier of light rising from the very soil. In orbit, Admiral Leon watched in silence as Earth's surface transformed. Mountain ranges shifted subtly, ocean tides reversed, and a faint hum filled the global comms network. It was not a weapon, but a voice. Earth was speaking. In a dozen languages long dead, it whispered warnings that rippled across the galaxy. And somewhere in the halls of the Galactic Council, ancient alarms that hadn't sounded in millennia began to scream. Earth was no longer sleeping, and the Deathworld girl was no longer frail. The remains of the alien fleet drifted like burning ash across the edge of Earth's orbit. The once proud armada, thousands of ships strong, was now a graveyard of metal and flame. From the command decks of surviving human stations, officers watched in silence as wreckage blotted out the stars. No one spoke. Every sensor reading told the same story. The invaders were broken, but something about the silence didn't feel right. Commander Isla Reeves stood at the center of the command nexus, eyes fixed on the main display. "Status report," she said, her voice low but steady. "Alien flagship destroyed," said her communications officer. "But we're detecting residual energy from the debris field. It's unnatural." Before Isla could respond, the lights flickered. Static bled through the comm channels. Then the entire display filled with a single glowing symbol, a crimson spiral that pulsed like a heartbeat. Her stomach sank. "They activated a failsafe," she whispered. The fleet wasn't the weapon, it was the key. High above Earth, the largest fragment of the alien flagship began to glow brighter, veins of red light crawling across its surface. Within moments it ignited with a deep resonant hum that rippled through space. Sensors across the planet spiked. Every satellite recorded a sudden gravitational surge. "Ma'am," said one of the officers, panic rising in his voice, "something is forming inside the debris field." A ripple of distortion appeared beyond the moon, dark energy swirling like a storm in vacuum. It expanded rapidly, devouring the remains of the fleet, bending light around it. Within seconds, a massive structure emerged from the void, an artificial singularity, a gateway. They hadn't come to conquer Earth. They'd come to open something worse. From the swirling darkness, new ships began to appear, larger, older, and silent. Their hulls were made of obsidian metal that absorbed all light, and they moved without visible propulsion. Their presence pressed against the senses as if reality itself bent around them. "Contact with the Galactic Council," Isla ordered sharply. Now, no response. The communication lines were dead. Whatever the enemy had unleashed was jamming signals across the system. Humanity was alone again. The first of the black ships entered orbit. It didn't fire weapons. Instead, it broadcast a low, droning sound across every frequency, a deep mechanical tone that vibrated through oceans and air. It wasn't language. It was command. On the planet's surface, Alira heard it too. The ground trembled as the deep sound resonated through the core of the world. She fell to her knees, clutching her head as the ancient structure beneath her pulsed violently. The voices she had once heard were now screaming. "They're trying to take control," she whispered. The planet was alive, but even it could be overwhelmed. The invaders were tapping into something older than the Council, something buried in the foundations of the galaxy itself. Alira rose to her feet, blood trickling from her temple, and spoke into her comms. "Commander Isla, you have to evacuate the orbit now." "Not without you," Isla replied. "There's no time. They're trying to rewrite the planetary network. If they succeed, Earth won't fight for us anymore, it'll fight for them." In orbit, Isla looked at the spreading black fleet. How do we stop it? Alira closed her eyes, feeling the pulse of the planet beneath her. "We have to merge fully. Me and Earth, it's the only way to shut them out." Isla hesitated. "That could kill you." Alira smiled faintly. "I think that's the point." She placed both hands on the glowing metallic core beneath her. Energy flared instantly, wrapping her in light that burned like fire. The ancient machinery around her came alive, spires rising, circuits glowing, the air vibrating with power. Across the planet, dormant systems awoke. Mountains shifted. Oceans roared. The sky filled with auroras as the planet's magnetic field intensified 100-fold. From orbit, the black ships began to falter. Their formation wavered. "Energy surge from the planet," shouted Isla's sensor chief. "It's off the charts. Every human station is going offline." "Hold position," Isla said. "Let it happen." On the surface, Alira's body was dissolving into light. She could feel every heartbeat of the planet, every tectonic shift, every atom vibrating in sync with her mind. Her voice was no longer her own when she spoke. "You do not belong here," she said, her words echoing through the crust, the oceans, the very air. The black ships answered by opening fire. Beams of dark energy struck the surface, vaporizing clouds and tearing through the atmosphere. But before the beams could reach her, they bent, warped by invisible currents. The planet's gravity shifted. It was no longer a world of dirt and stone. It was a weapon. The atmosphere itself ignited as plasma storms swirled across continents. Energy spires fired upward, striking the black ships like spears. One by one, the invaders exploded silently, their hulls crumbling into dust. Isla watched from orbit, her crew speechless. "She's doing it," she whispered. "She's taking control of the entire biosphere." The final black ship released a piercing scream through every frequency, a last desperate command. But Alira's voice drowned it out. "You came to control a Deathworld," she said. "You forgot why it was called that." The surface of the Earth split open, revealing a blinding network of molten lines. From orbit, it looked as if the entire planet was wrapped in a glowing web. The pulse spread outward, past the atmosphere, through space, reaching the black ships and the singularity that birthed them. The gateway twisted violently, collapsing under its own gravity. The surviving alien vessels were dragged back into the vortex, torn apart by the gravitational collapse. And then, silence. For a few moments, nothing moved. The stars returned. The hum of sensors stabilized. The alien fleet was gone. Commander Isla let out a shaky breath. "Status? All hostiles eliminated," replied her officer quietly. "The anomaly has collapsed." But what? "Alira's signal is gone." The words hit harder than any explosion. Isla stared at the fading readings on her console. The planet was quiet now, too quiet. "Open a global scan," she ordered softly. "Find her. For hours they searched. Every satellite, every ground station, every sensor combed the planet for a sign of the girl. But she was nowhere. The only thing left was a faint blue glow deep beneath the surface, at the heart of the ancient structure. Weeks passed. Then months. The Galactic Council eventually restored communication and demanded answers. Reports of what had happened spread across the galaxy, whispered in fear and disbelief. The youngest member of the Galactic Academy, the girl they called Frail, had faced an entire fleet and ended a war. No one truly understood how, but travelers who passed near Earth in the years that followed often reported strange things. They said the planet seemed to watch them, that its storms reacted to foreign ships, that sometimes on quiet nights the winds carried a voice, a human voice, warning them to stay away. And far below the surface, where metal met magma and the echoes of battle still lingered, a faint pulse continued to beat in rhythm with the planet itself. Humanity had survived, but Earth would never sleep again.